Well, this is fun for us because when we talk about trends, post-COVID trends, this information has come out of quite a few different studies. And what we wanted to do is pull together some of the things we see that are the most significant for you as ministry leaders and to say, how can you apply this? So the first, we're going to look at 9 different trends, kind of 9.5 maybe, but the first one we're talking about is multi-channel communication equals multi-channel champions. Now, one of the things I've noticed about trends and when they bring up new ideas, they like to use fancy words. And fancy words makes people sound smart, but the reality is this is a very simple concept, but very important and very useful. So we're going to look at a couple of different things around that. When we talk about multi-channel communication, and what does that mean? Well, this is a chart that shows basically there are different kinds of ways that we communicate with our donors, with the community around us. The one that's furthest out up in the top right-hand corner of that is face-to-face. F2F is face-to-face. Then going down that slide is with a telephone, mail, direct mail, web, email, and then SM, social media. So these are very typical, common ways of communication. But what this chart is showing us is this mix of ideas between what's the required resources to do any one of these types of communication versus the response rate. And what's interesting in many organizations, we love to use email as a main source of communicating with our donors, kind of obsessed with it. Why? Most of the reasons why is because number one, we all have email. It's easy to get access to a lot of people and it's free. So we think that this is great, but look where email is in terms of response rate and required resources. So email typically has a 0.12% response rate. That's what our stats are telling us now, which is incredibly low. If you look even up halfway through that mail, direct mail, when you're sending something out, even now, today, it has a 4.4% response rate. So the significance of that is to say, with the amount of resources that any type of communication requires, what's the return on investment? And while many organizations that are small particularly love to use email because it's free, or social media because it's free, or their website, you can see that the response rates are much lower. So more personal approaches that are offline, like face-to-face or getting on the phone with somebody, has a much higher response rate than the other types. But when you think about all of that, and you think, what happens if we don't just use one at a time, if we don't just measure how effective each one are, but what if we actually used multiple types, multi-channels to communicate? So think about your context. What channels do you currently use? Which ones don't you use? Why don't you use them? And we know that face-to-face, you can see on here, requires the most resources, but also has by far the highest response rate. So thinking about, do you not use that? And why is it? Is it just because it's going to take a lot of your time? So if you're aware of which ones you're using, what we want to do with multi-channel communication is they're suggesting that we take a communication strategy that goes across all the channels, that connects people to what is going on in your organization at one time. Instead of doing one event with one channel, like a direct mail campaign, and you send out information, you say, we're raising money for this situation, to use all of the different channels to accomplish one particular unified campaign. So it's multi-channel communication means utilizing all of these channels with a consistent set of messages and focused on any one thing going on in your organization at one given time. That will the responses will jump from as the little things of 0.1% response rate. If you maximize what email can be used for with face-to-face, you're going to increase that response rate to well over, much higher than the 4.4 of the mail or even the face-to-face, which in many cases people say 30%. So using all these channels for a unified campaign is what we're talking about. So this slide helps us see a little bit more clearly what that looks like, because you can have on the blue, it is showing multi-channels with multi-campaigns. So that is the example of saying, okay, we're going to do a face-to-face event that we're going to raise $100,000 doing this face-to-face. And then in 2 months from now, we're going to do an online campaign because it's going to be Giving Tuesday, and having separate campaigns with separate channels, seeing which one works the best. On the right-hand side, the brown is saying, let's use multiple channels with a unified campaign. Now, the benefit of doing this is particularly felt by the donor, because if you've been a donor to organizations, you've experienced that when an organization sends out something in the on their email and says, we're going to do this campaign, and you're like, oh, good, okay, that's great to know. And then you get something in your mail and you find, oh, they're doing this other campaign. And then you find out on social media, oh, we're promoting this other thing. That kind of leads to what we would call donor confusion, information overload. And typically people will feel confused about what's going on and like they're on the outside getting information late. But on the other hand, if you connect all of your communication, focusing on a particular campaign, utilizing what's best and what works well for every single channel, you use social media for digital visual things, and use email to give more information, use your website for a different way. You use all of them, what that creates for a donor to say, one unified campaign, I know what's going on, I know what's happening, I can do something, I know how they want me to respond, which leads to donor joy and people connecting in a consistent way with you in multiple channels to accomplish the goals that you have set. So using multi-channels, saying, how do we utilize them best? Well, here's some statistics, just quickly if you take a look, the in-person and the website, across the board, every generation loves to use both of those. But when it comes to mobile donations, you see the baby boomers, that's not their area of focus. So when you're thinking about multi-channels and how to best use them, and if you use them together, you may not get your baby boomers through mobile, but you can get them through all these other means of channels. So just being aware of that. What I found most interesting in this particular study was that through the mail, through direct mail, look at that, baby boomers, it's very ineffective for baby boomers, but look at Gen Z. They are 21%, which is a pretty high percentage, are responding. They like direct mail. Now I scratched my head and thought, what is that? It made me really curious. And as I talked to a number of people and asked a few Gen Zers, they say, well, we don't ever get mail. So if we get some mail from an organization we love and we find out what's going on, it's kind of fun to hear from organizations because they're not used to getting direct mail. So that's just something I didn't anticipate and thought I'd share with you. So similarly with text donations, that's not surprising. Boomers don't like most media things. You're not going to use them with boomers, but you're going to be getting them through your emails, through websites, and through in-person communication. So just to get close to wrapping this up, there are a few secrets of how do you do an integrated, unified, multi-channel campaign. Simply is consistent branding. You want to be able to see the same kinds of images from one type channel. So whether it's in your email, in direct mail, in social media, you want to have coloring, something that stands out, even using this idea of a hashtag. So hashtags will help make it unified. So if you're trying to do a fundraiser, a funathon is one organization recently created, then hashtag funathon across all of your multi-channels. Focus on a consistent goal with a single donation form so that everything's being driven toward a consistent place. Have a clear but strong call to action. People know what you want them to do. What's the goal? How do they take action? Develop clear multi-channel promotional plan. That means on your end, if you know which channels are we going to use, when are we going to use them, and then actually put them in a calendar plan so that you know what's happening, that's going to get a very consistent multi-channel campaign. And when you use multi-channel campaigns, you're actually going to create multi-channel donors, which means people who are following you, not just email, but on your website, social media, fundraising events, and they feel like they know what's going on because it's a consistent message across everyone. And in the end result in donors, look at that amount, that average amount given. So it pays off that multi-channel donors, people that show up, see what you're doing in different ways of communication, they also feel more connected and they give more because they feel like they can be a significant part of what you're doing in a meaningful way, and they're on the inside. So remember, multi-channel donors come from multi-channel campaigns. So passing this back to Jonathan, and that makes the donors happy.
Awesome. Thank you. I want to talk to you about the fact that matching gifts in 2023 and money raised toward a specific goal is still very effective. So I think sometimes we wonder, man, are matching gifts old? Do people really respond well to them? So let's talk a little bit about that. And so the first thing you need to know is a few statistics, a few very specific numbers here. 84% of donors are more likely to donate when they know a matching gift is being offered. That's extremely significant. 1 in 3 donors say that they'd give a larger gift if a match will be applied to their donation. That intrigued me as well. I sometimes think if we offer a matching gift, then is that going to create a situation where somebody gives a lower level gift because they would say, well, I was going to give $100, but since it's going to be matched, now I'm going to give $50, and that's how I'll get to the 100 mark. Statistics say that's not the case, that people say if a match is being offered, they tend to give larger gifts because they want to make greater impact. Also, mentioning a matching gift in an appeal results in a 71% increase in response rates. Again, we're talking big percentages here, everybody. And it also results in a 51% increase in the average donation amount, which I just touched on. How about this one? Sending a matching, follow me here, sending a matching gift reminder after a donation results in a 53% open rate, which is 2 to 3 times higher than the average nonprofit email open rate. So are you following this here? So somebody makes a donation to your organization, and then after that, maybe even as a part of the thank you email, you mention to them that the gift that they just gave could be matched. Maybe it's an interesting subject line that you use that grabs their attention. And so again, remember, they've already given the gift, but now you're saying, hey, the gift that you just gave could be matched. That's interesting to people. They want to understand that more. They want to understand why. And so they are going to open that email or that communication piece at a much higher level. And the question is, well, how can somebody's gift be matched after they've already given it? How does that work? Why would that work? It's because of this right here. 26 million people work for companies with matching gift programs. And oftentimes when they make a gift to your organization, they're not thinking about that or they've forgotten about it. And so what you're doing is you're taking just a minute to remind them of that and to ask them to either ask about that, connected with their employer, or maybe they already know about that and now you're sort of triggering a reminder so that they can take advantage of that. So very interesting there. And then next, a few other things. For some donor bases, matches never get old. Now, you've got to understand your donor base and what they respond to and what works for them. But I am telling you, there are some organizations that I've worked with now going on 10 and 15 years. And without fail, every year, they roll out their summer match campaign and their year-end match campaign. And their people love it. Their people respond to it. And as an organization, they typically always meet that match. So you've got to know your people. You've got to understand the rhythm and the flow of your donor base. But for some organizations, they just never get old, to the point that if these organizations don't do them, people are saying, hey, are we going to do the match campaign this year? Because they are so used to seeing it as part of their rhythm. The providers of matching funds, the donors, the givers, they still love to give matching funds. Why would that be? Because it's an opportunity for them to help you accomplish something bigger as an organization, to raise more money. Not only are those individual givers who are providing those matching gifts, not only is their money going farther, right, and being leveraged and will ultimately turn into more money for impact, but they love to see the organization that they love, your organization, raise more money. And if they can help you do that by providing a matching gift, that's what they'd like to do. A lot of donors. So do not be afraid to have those conversations and talk to people about providing matching gifts. One way you might do that is to raise what I would just call a group match. And this is what I refer to as inviting people on to the leadership side of ministry. So let's say you're rolling out a campaign and there are 4 families that you know, most likely based on their history with you, they will respond to this campaign and they will give maybe even a major gift. Well, here's a different way to set that up. Instead of rolling out the campaign and just allowing them to respond to it as they might do normally, reach out to them in advance. Talk to them about what you're trying to accomplish and the dollar amount that you're trying to raise. And again, invite them onto the leadership side of this campaign and say, hey, instead of just responding to this campaign, would you be willing to provide a $2,500 gift that we can use to motivate others to give? And we're going to take your $2,500 gift. You ready for this? And we're going to add 3 other $2,500 gifts from some other donors. And we're going to create a $10,000 matching fund. If I'm that donor, I'm very intrigued by that. And I'm excited about it because now my $2,500 has the opportunity to help you create a $10,000 matching fund. And when it's all said and done, help your organization raise $20,000 or more, right? Once all of those funds are matched. So is there an opportunity for you to raise a group match with some different people? As Heather just mentioned, when you are rolling out a campaign or when you have matching funds, you want to market, and use multiple channels and reach your people where they are. And then the last thing to understand here is that money raised toward a specific goal can be just as motivating as matching funds. And here's an example of that. Let's say you have a fundraising event and you stand up and you say, we're trying to raise $100,000 tonight, but guess what? God's already been moving in a great way as people have been hearing about this, as we've been talking about it behind the scenes a little bit. People have already started to give, and we have, are you ready for this, everybody? We have $50,000 already raised toward our $100,000 goal tonight. And so, right, that motivates people in that fundraising event or in that direct mail campaign. It tells people that gifts have already come in. People are already excited about making this happen. And now the people in the room or the people receiving that direct mail piece can help finish this thing off, get it across the finish line, and it becomes sort of a point of celebration. And now again, you would develop those funds for that campaign by talking to people behind the scenes before you go public. And so you meet with some individuals, and again, you invite them onto the leadership side of this campaign or this effort and say, we want to raise $100,000, but by the time we go public, we want to announce that we're already halfway there or more. Would you consider giving gifts early? And that will, we believe, motivate and inspire other people to give. So if you're wondering in 2023, based on data and trends, if matching gifts are still effective, they are. And they are still extremely motivating to people, and people respond very well to them. So Heather, I will turn it back over to you.
Great. I think matching gifts are one of my favorite things as a giver, is just to identify that there's, the multiplication of what you're giving is really motivating. Another good news is in-person events are back. Well, this isn't quite, surprising. After COVID, we all wanted to get out. We wanted to be with people face to face, but we don't want to stop the virtual. That's that all the trends are saying, is that now that we can be together, people still want to have their options, just in case they're not able to be somewhere physically. They can participate online, and they want to be able to share it with their friends. And sometimes when you share something with your friends, they're not likely to show up to a face-to-face first time, but if there's a virtual event, they will. So we don't want to stop. We want to be able to say, can we do both? And that's the big question. So in one of the surveys that we looked at, they asked the question of, how did you participate in your last fundraiser? Interestingly, 74% said they were in person. They wanted to be there, but there still was 26% that their last event that they attended was virtual. So you're still seeing quite a big number of people wanting to be a part of the virtual world. So 85% of donors will really say they're comfortable being face-to-face. And I think that number is growing every single day. But there's still some people that have the concern, because we see COVID still there. People can't get out. They aren't comfortable in crowds. And they still want to say, we want to do some things virtual. So peer-to-peer, occasional donors, they often will prefer doing virtual options. But volunteers and your champions and your major donors, those people want to get together. They want to be face-to-face and engaging. So the more that we see peer-to-peer events growing, the more we're seeing that virtual events is really important, that you want to think about, how do you do that? It was in 2021 that 67% of donors said that they would agree that doing things virtual is still important to them. That's a very high number. But they want to also be able to get together and to celebrate and to be able to do things with people with events that are really important to them, with organizations that they feel most connected with. So that's helpful to know that kind of on the onboarding side of things, newer people still like virtual. And so when you consider events and you want to get new donors, having a virtual capacity is really important to help them feel like they can engage, get to know, or even do something with some of their friends. And that's exciting. So you've got about 13% that say, we don't really want to do anything but virtual, but a growing number saying we want to be able to do both. So here's interesting information. This is a question that's basically, when you attended the campaign, how did you feel about that campaign? How was it run? Was it run well? Was it run poorly? And when you look at in person, we know how to do that. 65% say, yeah, it was excellent. And a very, very small percentage, 2% said fair, and almost nobody said it really wasn't worth it. But when you look at virtual, there's some room for growth for us to say, how do we do virtual events effectively? It's going to take some intentionality, some really good planning to be able to make our virtual events just as effective. So the question was, what makes these events really important? And they said two things. It needs to be fun. So now that we're out in public and we can do things, we want to do fun things with people, doing things about we care about. And they want engaging activities. Well, engaging activities, that's very open-ended, not sure what that meant. So they dug a little bit deeper and they said the top two things that make something engaging is, number one, hearing about impact. People, this is true across all fundraising, impact, impact, impact. People want to know that when they contribute, when they say yes to some kind of an organization, a cause, they want to know that it's making a difference. So Jonathan's going to talk more a bit about this a little bit later, but that's one of the critical things that when it comes to virtual events, if you're running a peer-to-peer event where people don't have to get together and you're going to tell them, they want to hear stories. They want to see a video of testimonies of people that were actually benefited. Some of them could be live, some of them could be recorded, but as long as it's visual, people sharing those testimonies, that's what they're looking for, not just fun, but also engaging them to understand that what they're going to do makes a difference, and they can easily tell that story with other people. And so doing this kind of thing, getting people together, here's a couple of examples that organizations we all know and love did even during COVID and then have continued since that time, was to create their event, like with House of Refuge, Sunny Slope. They have done this bowling event, and they used to do it where they would be in a bowling alley and be together. But then when COVID happened, they had to adapt and pivot so that they could do a virtual event that is people could do this in their homes with people they were comfortable with. So they actually put together a set of tools that were like bowling ball pins and a bowler, or told people how to do that so they could do it at home, which allowed people to gather with people they had fun with. And you can see these guys are having a blast. But then the process was now to say, how do we help them understand the significance of what they've done? They sent out some great information before the event and then following the event to say, here's some testimonies, here's some examples of what's done. Harvest Compassion's done it similar, and they actually have gone to virtual events with groups of people that they aren't going back to their main event because they know how to bring people together. They know how to share impact and how to make it so that it's exciting and that more and more people are joining. So they've had their success level of bringing people together and widening their network of people that are contributing, being a part of their events, has been when they've really made this into a virtual event. And they are considering saying, well, maybe we should do something where a few people get together with us, but we've got these great groups doing it. So to be creative, you need to engage your virtual attenders so that they can feel like they can join anytime and any place, and they could be a part of it and do something meaningful. Here's one thing that helps these kind of events virtually is good tools that will help you set a goal that anyone can jump on. And this is just an example of a kid who signed up in one of the Feed One walk run events, and he wanted to bring together a group of people that he could donate with him to accomplish his goal. And you could see he almost raised it when I took this screenshot of it, but he hit his target of $5,000. And he has a site that has his name, his picture on it, tells what HCC is doing, what this event is going to accomplish. It helps, this kind of a platform helps build trust, helps people see, okay, there is something behind what they're doing. And then for HCC, their benefit is they get to reach an entire network that they wouldn't have reached before, that's out of Connor's families, friends, and people that would follow him. So they put together, when you do something like this, all you need to do is sit down with a small group of people, think about what's our goal, what's a creative idea that we could do, a walk run, a bowl-a-thon, a serve-a-thon, And as I mentioned, one group just recently, or they're doing a fun-a-thon, and you could do puzzles, you could do anything to be a part of their event, but they have a way for a group to come together, for people to pick a date. They've got dates and times, and they've got a connection to an organization that has significant impact stories, and a way now that they can promote it to others. So if you're working on events, thinking about having a hybrid event, an event that you could do in person, but you could also make it accessible, that people could do these in groups of their choice, in their own network of people. That's where you're going to get the biggest return for both. So think about hybrid events if you've never done one. Peer-to-peer people is there a network that builds trust in the organization and gives you a sense of some of people you would never reach in your own network, your current network. So think about tools if you're going to do events that are in person as well as events that are virtual. Then you will have to think about what are the tools that will make this easier and accessible for people online as well as in person. And so we're seeing the use of phones, mobile giving, mobile texting, mobile events, using auction management software, peer-to-peer platforms. All of these tools for the amount of money, they give you an incredibly rich ability to pull together people virtually and communicate your message effectively. So peer-to-peer, that's part of the virtual world. Let people come in and engage with people they know and they love. Build a whole new set of donors, but don't forget, we want to do our in-person events. People are eager to be together and to have virtual event options with them.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that collaboration might be calling you, and maybe is calling you, in 2023. And so do donors specifically like to give to organizations that are partnering with other organizations and collaborating together? And the answer to that is definitely. So there is a book out there called Rooting for Rivals, which you should add to your reading list. The authors are Peter Greer and Chris Horst. And they say a number of great things in there and deal with a lot of great topics and even strategy for collaborating with other organizations. But the overarching principle is this, and here's what they say: no single organization is responsible for any major social problem, nor can any single organization cure it. Large-scale social change requires broad cross-sector coordination. And so what they're talking about is that problems are big, right? And if we're truly thinking about solving problems and really helping massive numbers of people, one of the most effective ways we can do that is to partner and collaborate with other like-minded ministries and like-minded organizations. And as they dove into, through their research, what they would consider to be high collaborative organizations, they discovered two mindsets that they had in common, these organizations. Number one, these highly collaborative ministries believe in a God and a world that God has created, and that it is a world of abundance, not one of scarcity. And so what they're talking about here is these organizations believe that partnering is not going to hurt them in any way, it's going to help them. That there are not a limited number of resources out there, right? And so it's not the mindset of we have to compete with other organizations to get our hands on a limited number of resources. It's that God is big and God can do all things, and God can provide for all of our ministries and all of our organizations together. And the other view that they had was that they are very focused, first and foremost, on making kingdom impact and coming together with other organizations to make kingdom impact, And they're not just focused on their own ministry or on their own clan. So they're realizing and recognizing that problems are big, that it's going to take partnership and a team effort. And they are saying that is more important than what we are doing individually. I want to point your attention here to a video, and we're going to send you a link to this video when we're done here today. This is in the resources section of venture19.org, and you can see a screenshot of it here. I sat down with Jonathan Sanborn and Katie Odell, who are very collaborative in nature with their work and with organizations in this community. And we just talked a little bit about the importance of collaboration and what makes it work, what makes it not work as well, why we should have a mindset of collaboration. And this video is just about 9 minutes long. And again, we'll send you that link, but really, really encourage you to view that when you have a few minutes. A couple summary thoughts from Jonathan and Katie. They reiterated problems are too big to be solved by just one organization. They reminded us that we are really just one slice of the whole pie, and that there's more folks out there, right, who God has called to do work in areas of similarity with us. And so how can we find them and how can we partner with them? Katie brought up this concept, which I love. We must die to ourselves. And we often think about this concept connected with our spiritual lives, right? But have we ever thought about it connected with our ministry and what God's called us to do? That it's not all about us. And so what does that mean from a partnership standpoint? When we collaborate with other organizations, a donor dollar goes farther. And donors love to give to collaborative projects. They also said, if you've never collaborated with another organization, try it. You might like it, and it might be a game changer for you. They reiterated that God uses it in a special way, and that when we collaborate with other organizations, big things tend to get done. One example they shared in this video was a group of organizations that were all working to translate the Bible in every language that's out there. And there was an end date connected with this project, that we were going to be able to have Bible translation in every language by a certain year out there. But then some donors came together and talked to all of these groups and said, what if you guys got together on all of this, work together, we will help to fund it and make it happen, and we try to get this thing done sooner. And all of those groups said, absolutely, we're willing to do that. And do you want to hear what the result is? They are currently going to trim off 50 years of the end date of that Bible translation being available in every language. So coming together, working together, they're going to get it done 50 years sooner, which is incredible. I love Matthew 5:9 in the Message translation. You are blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. That's when you discover who you really are and your place in God's family. And one great example of collaboration in the Phoenix area is a number of churches that are coming together and working together to try to reach the valley for Christ. I go to CCV, which you might know is a very large church, but CCV reached a point where they said, if we really want to reach everybody in the valley with the message of Jesus, we can't do that just as CCV, just as one church. And so they launched an initiative called More Than Us, and they are now collaborating with 25 to 30 other churches. They're meeting on a regular basis. They're talking about programming and how together they can reach everybody in the valley with the message of Jesus. And so again, we typically are better together, everybody. And so what does that mean for you in 2023? Have you found somebody that's doing like-minded work? And maybe is there a community project that you can connect on And through that partnership and through that collaboration, God will use in incredible ways that will even blow you away. So think about collaborating in 2023. Heather, back to you.
Yeah, a lot of good information today. And if you jump on to this idea of relational mapping as a must, it's one of those challenges that as a leader, you've got all these people you're building a relationship with donors, and they expect to feel like they're connected to you as an organization. How do you do that? You know, and I've seen so many more fundraising trainings highlighting the need to be relational in our fundraising. It's just this constant mantra to say, we have to be relational. People need to feel like they're connected, they belong, they're a part. But if you have 50 donors, 100 donors, or even 5,000, how do you do that and build real relationships? It makes sense from a donor's perspective, but from a perspective of a ministry leader, it's going to take some focus on how do you create this idea of mapping out the relationships that you have. So it's no secret that relationship and having personalized connection with your donors is effective. It cultivates your supporters and helps them feel like they're connected and a part of a thing. There's a study that was done in this last year of 630 different organizations that are across, you know, not even just this nation, but 10 different countries around the world. And they all have adopted this digital personalized strategy to say, how do we use our CRMs, use all the tools we can to be able to help donors know that we have a relational connection. And when they did this study, they were shocked to realize that 45% of those people that have adopted these tools and have a strategy, that they actually didn't use the donor's name in their emails. You know, they have the tools, but they hadn't actually connected to using the subscribers' names in their interactions. So there's a disconnect. It's like, we know we need more technology. We know people want to feel connected, but how do we do that that doesn't overwhelm us as a leader? So there are some pretty simple tools and technology pieces that will help us with branding consistency, with getting our messages out, writing letters. All of that is important, but finding ways to connect to the person's basic 4 things: their name. If you say, hey, I know who you are by name. What has your giving been? We're familiar that you have given, whether it's in a reoccurring matter or you gave in the last year. Do you understand my giving preferences? Are you giving online, automated? Are you giving by check? Are you, what do you seem to care about? What things do you respond to? That's what technology can help us do. But those 4 things are what they're saying. Donors want to know that we understand that we're not, if I'm a regular monthly donor, I'm not getting emails about joining the monthly donor program. So how do we do that? And it's really about understanding who our donors are and mapping out what it is that they have done. How do they fit together? If we have more than one donor that's giving online, giving reoccurring gifts, can we talk to them in a consistent way and to help meet the needs of similar types of donors so that they feel like they're known, they're understood, they're cared about? We talk about segmenting. That's a similar word to mapping it out. We can segment our donors if we can map it out. So if you map something out, you might actually have a donor base that looks like this. It's like, okay, there's you. And then there's all these different groups of people. That's a lot of relationships. Right here, it's about between 100 to 200 relationships that are mapped out, but that map looks a bit overwhelming. So what if we considered looking at these donors in interest groups? What do they have in common? How do they give? what is it that what is even the giving size that they might have? So in this, you can see we put in some of the different groups. It's okay, if you have a monthly donor program, that's a group of people. Maybe you've got church partners. Here's our major gift partners. We've got some planned giving. We've got some groups of people that are peer-to-peers, a large group of those, and even potential donors that we connected to, we got information about, but haven't yet given. So that right there, we can see there are 6 different categories. And if we can take those categories and start to map out who they are, what they're interested in, what they care about, how do they want to be communicated, and start to anticipate all of those things, it changes the way we can communicate and move from trying to communicate to 100 to 200 people relationally to making 6 groups where I can start to focus that communication in a way that will meet the needs of those people. Now, a lot of times we talk about giving pyramids when we look at the breaking down our donors into these different kinds of categories. And if this pyramid, what it's showing us is really the numbers of donors, not the significance, not the amount of time you need to spend, but planned giving and deferred givers, people, this is like foundations, or if you have a giving program where people are giving legacy gifts, they are fewer than the majority at this season right now. And so there's a few of them, but they have unique needs. They have a unique desire and unique pattern of giving, typically giving annually, sometimes quarterly. And so that's a group of people you could categorize together and find a way to communicate, not just as an email, but most of these people want to connect. And because there's a few of them, you might be able to identify ways in which to connect with them that would be meaningful. And then you've got major givers. It's a larger group, but still not as large as the others. They have unique needs. They want to be communicated to a unique way. And then there's recurring givers. Now, this pyramid, you could change the different categories to fit your need. But the point is that you identify what are the different donor types that you could break down of your current donors. What are the kinds of gifts that they typically give? How many people are there? And then what's a strategy that you and your team, and if your team is you and yourself and I, then what is really possible that gives you the ability to connect to these people in a relational, meaningful way that would meet their needs? So grouping them will help you create a plan that will be basically sustainable for you and more relational for them. So thinking about that, here's an example of just a sample organization, a made-up organization. This is an organization that has 150 givers, and they did a very simple overview just by gift size, not by anything else, that could help them identify what are some of their categories. And then all you have is gift size in here, but if you look at that, and I've got that image of the triangle there. If the smallest amount are your planned giving group, yeah, they've got 2 givers that are giving over $25,000 a year. That's likely those groups where it's either a foundation or it's somebody giving legacy gifts. So that's a natural grouping that you could put a group in and say, all right, how do we want to work with those? But then you look at the next layer and think, all right, so we've got quite a few people that are giving between 10,000 and 25,000. What are the needs that group has? And maybe that's going to be your mega givers. And then you've got another group that is pretty large. It's 29 people. They're giving between 25,000 and 10,000. You go, those are our major givers. How do you want to communicate with them? So it's just imagining, how might you want to break down a group like this? So to do it, it's simply outlining. Here's one way, is by gift size. You can also outline it by how are they giving? Are they giving by check? Are they giving in person? Are they giving online? You can also organize these by specific needs of different groups. Longevity. Some people are saying, okay, we've had donors that have been giving for a long time. But it's just simply using the tools you have to, and really I want to emphasize this. This is not something that should take you days and weeks. It could happen in one meeting. You gather the information that you have about your givers and try to figure out what are the best categories for you to identify the types of donors that you have, so that you and your team can identify what is a strategy for communication for each of these types. And so if you break this down, you could probably do that in half an hour, maybe an hour, looking at the information, and then having a follow-up time where you could set a strategy that says, how do I want to communicate with these people? What are their expectations? What are their needs? So that you can communicate to them in an effective and personalized way. So mapping this out really simply, this is just a one-pager. You could do this online. You could do it on a piece of paper. Once you figure out your donor types, you list them all out there, then say, how many donors do we have? What are their needs? And then you can look at what is our strategy for each of these types of people, each grouping of these people, and saying, what does it look like for them to feel like we connect to them, like they're known, like what they're giving matters, we understand them. And then if you think about having this kind of a strategy, that means I've got this particular example, 5 groups that I want to be aware of to make them feel like they are connected, rather than thinking of, oh, I've got 200 donors. And what happens if we grow? How am I going to meet the needs of 500 donors? So as you grow, your strategy will change. You may change your donor type, but taking some time and looking at that map, how do you map it out? This will give the ability to segment communication, to communicate personally, so that your donors feel like they really, truly are a part of your family, and they'll stay donors for years and years to come.
This section is called Don't Say Can't to the Grant. And so in 2023, know that foundations are still looking for the right community partners. In 2021, $112 billion in grant funding was distributed to nonprofits, and that dollar amount is increasing every year. And so I want to talk about the 3 main aspects of grant writing. They are research, relationship building, and writing. And so first, let's talk a little bit about research. So I want you to see, as you do, this famous picture of the iceberg here, right? This to me is the ideal picture of grant writing. And so research and building the relationship is below the surface. And really what's above the surface is just that last part of actually writing the grant. So the majority of the work happens long before you write the grant. And so let's talk about this research section for just a minute. Before you can write a successful grant, you need to be writing to the right foundation, right? And so that means that foundation needs to be a good fit for your work. And so how do you find different foundations out there? There are a number of ways to do it. I'm just going to highlight a couple quick ones here. You can check out a number of online tools. And I'm going to just read off a quick list to you. You do not need to write this down. Just shoot me a quick email when our session is done, and I will send these all back to you. But here are a few examples. The Foundation Center Directory Online, Grant Station, grantmakers.io, grants.gov, Funds for NGOs, Grant Gopher, Terra Viva, Grantscape, and so many others. I just say that to say there are a number of online tools that can benefit you as you are seeking out the right foundation. Now, a number of these tools are subscription-based. And so here's what you can do, though. You're not signing any type of long-term deal. So what you might want to do is just subscribe to one of these tools or one of these methods out there for, say, a month, and just front, I should say, all of your research. And so spend a month doing a bunch of research and identifying some foundations that you feel like will be a right fit for you. And so that's one way that you can use those online tools. You don't need to sign on long-term for them. And typically for a month or two, they're very affordable. There's another way that you can do some great research. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about some organizations in your community or maybe even across the country who are doing similar work to what you're doing. Okay. And again, this connects even back, right? Could be a good collaborative partner there, but understanding these organizations can also help you identify the right foundations to write grants to. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to identify some organizations whose work is similar to yours, and then you are going to go look up their Form 990, which is all public information and completely available to everybody that's out there. The easiest way to look at somebody's 990, and you should write this down, is go to GuideStar online. That's GuideStar. And you can set up a basic account that is free there. And then you can research other nonprofits and you can see their 990s there. And so make sure that you know that your 990s are there as well. And so when other folks are looking at your organization and want to learn more about you, they are able to access your 990s. So here's what you do. You think of organizations doing similar work to yours, then you go to GuideStar and you pull up their 990s and you look through their 990 to see if they have received grant funds from specific foundations. And if they have, it's going to be listed there. And then guess what? Are you following me, everybody here? You just connect the dots and you say that organization does similar work to ours. They received a grant from ABC Foundation. And so maybe the ABC Foundation would be interested in our work as well. So just some tips on research there. And now let's talk about building relationships with these foundations. Make contact if you can. Ask questions to them. Learn their heart, learn their history, learn their story. Why do these foundations exist and what are they trying to accomplish in the community? Think about this as a major donor relationship, right? Because it really is. And seek to understand why these foundations organized in the first place, right? I want you to think about that for just a minute, everybody. Somebody, right? Every foundation that exists got launched by, at some point, somebody saying, you know what? I've got a bunch of resources and I want to get intentional with my giving or with my family giving or with some community giving. And so I'm going to form and organize a foundation so that we can begin to meet needs in our community connected with what? Whatever they feel like God has called them to do. And that's what we need to find out. Maybe they're passionate about homelessness. Maybe they're passionate about helping churches get planted in their community, right? That's what you need to find out. So once you've identified a potential match, reach out to them if they will take your call, and many foundations will. I am telling you, this is a refreshing conversation for them when you seek to learn about them and their story and what they want to accomplish. And then when you understand that more fully, now is there a partnership possibility? Typically, everybody looks at foundations and says, you know what? I believe the reason you exist is to try to give other people money. And so we're going to try to convince you to give us money. No, the reason they exist is they want to get something done specific in their community. And so what is that? Is that the right fit for you? Again, seek to understand where they're coming from, what God's call is if they're a Christian foundation on their work, and then continue to go from there and take the right next steps. And then lastly, when it comes time, you write a grant, you submit a grant. Continue the relationship building there, continue the connection. Again, don't write a grant from the standpoint of we are awesome and this is why you should give money to us. No, write a grant from the perspective of we want to partner with you to help you achieve your mission in the community, and we believe we can help you get that done. You're going to have more success with grant writing if you have some money raised and some partners secured already. So if you are trying to write, I'll just use a big example here. If you're trying to write $100,000 grant and you already have money raised toward that $100,000 goal, and you already have partners who are helping to give and helping this project move forward, that's attractive to foundations. What's not attractive to foundations is we have a $100,000 project, we have nobody involved and no money raised. Will you grant us $100,000? Right? So that's not the best approach. When you're writing this grant, make sure that you communicate what will be different as a result of you getting this grant and implementing this community project or this community programming, because the foundations want to know what difference is their giving going to make. And then, of course, follow every single guideline, do what's asked of you, answer every question, and submit all of the documents that are requested there. The other thing I want you to do, though, is keep grant writing in perspective. Heather shared a pyramid. I'll share one here connected with grant writing. So this is what a typical healthy nonprofit budget looks like. We would say 10% of money needs to come in through donor acquisition. That's new givers each year. 80% of your budget should come in through individual giving units or partners or organizations. But then look at the very top here. We would say from a building sustainability standpoint that 10 to 15% of your budget can come in through grants, wills, trusts, and bequests. So if you are saying, Jonathan, our fundraising plan and strategy is to raise 90% of our budget through grant writing, we would say to you that is not really the most sustainable approach. Because even if you could secure 90% of your funding through grant writing, you're on thin ice, right? Because if a few of those foundations go away, or $50,000 grants turn into $10,000 grants because the economy's changed a little bit, right? Which we've seen in the recent past, then you can be in a little bit of trouble there. So keep grant writing in perspective. We would say a healthy amount is generating 10 to 15% of your overall budget through that income stream. Here is another shout out to our resources section. This is a great online class. We brought in a grant expert. Her name is Jackie Arenberg. It's called Get Grant Ready. And you can find that in the resources section, and she'll walk you through some great next steps on how to begin to think about grant writing. And then a quote from Jackie, which is really a picture of all nonprofit fundraising, but it very specifically ties in with grant writing. And she reminds us of this: your program or project is just the coordinator between the funders and the community need. The funding is just the tool to solve the community need. So again, when you think about grant writing, it's you partnering with a foundation to meet needs and solve problems in your community. It's not, look at us, we're awesome, you have money, will you give us some of it? It's much different from a relationship building standpoint. All right, next section. Ease and impact is greater than designation and programs. This is according to another study that we looked at. An easy giving experience is the top reason that social donors give. They defined a social donor as somebody who is not very closely connected with the work of your organization. So people that you are trying to reach with your message and people that you are hoping will become financial partners. It needs to be easy for them to give, or they're not going to give. Some things to think about. Can donors give anytime or anywhere? Is your tech mobile optimized? People are doing more and more right on their mobile devices now. Do you have multiple calls to action? That's what a CTA is, and donation buttons for quick giving. And then how many steps or clicks are needed to give, right? You've got to again make it easy and smooth, and you don't want people to be burning too many mental calories as they try to give. And can donors customize their different giving levels? They certainly want to be able to do that. A couple other quick stats not on this slide. 51% of people who visit a nonprofit's website do so now on a mobile device. 28% of online donations that are happening now are happening by phone. 54% of nonprofit emails are being read on mobile. So keep that at the forefront and make sure that everything is mobile friendly and mobile optimized. How about this? 80% of visits to nonprofit giving pages do not, say it with me, not end in a donation. That's really significant. Again, count the decisions that people need to make. Is something drawing their attention away from giving when they hit your giving page? Is there anything distracting? Listen, everybody, maybe even good, well-meaning stuff. Like you're saying, we want everybody to watch this awesome impact video so they know how their money's going to be spent. Well, maybe that video opens in a separate separate web window, right? And it pulls them away. Maybe it's a 5-minute video, and by the time that's done, something else has grabbed their attention. Is it clear? Are there any unclear steps? And as soon as someone starts burning mental calories, like I just said, they're going to be out of the giving process. Here's what I'd recommend all of you do. Go hit your own website and go give a financial gift to your own organization. Was it easy? Was it smooth? Did it raise questions? Is everything happening okay? Do it on laptop and then go and do it on mobile. Okay, maybe you want to give a $1,000 gift to your own organization by your desktop and another 1,000 by mobile. Check it out, or give $1, but check out the process. Here's a screenshot of House of Refuge Sunny Slope and their giving page. Pretty clean, pretty straightforward. 4 options: give now, become a monthly partner, give an Arizona tax credit gift. And I took this screenshot back around Easter time. You can give as part of our Easter match. Here is a screenshot of the Venture 19 giving page, very stripped down, very easy to see the information. 2 options: give now or give monthly. If you click on give now, that brings you over to a giving page that is branded as a one-time gift. And if you click on give monthly, it brings you to a different page that is branded for becoming a courageous monthly giving partner. I know what some of you are thinking. Jonathan, should I become a courageous monthly giving partner to Venture 19? Yes, you should. That'd be awesome, and it would be a blessing for us. So feel free. How about this? If your website is effective, listen to this. If your website is effective, your giving page is simply the way people respond to all of that. And so don't feel the need to re-give your mission, vision, cause, and everything else that's all over your website on your giving page. If they got that far, they're probably there to respond to what they've already seen and read and what they've experienced on your website. So just make it easy to give. Again, nothing that pulls people away from what they're there to do. If you want to share a word about impact and how money is going to be spent, that's okay, but just make it brief and make sure that it's short and concise. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the impact side of things. So, and I want to walk you through a couple different ways to communicate here. So oftentimes we might say something like this when we want people to give: help us save children. But what we want to do is we want to make sure to mix in a more full story, and we want to make sure that people have enough details. And help us save children is very general. It just doesn't say much. And so your communication to people should result in people actually seeing something in their mind's eye. And so here's a little bit of a formula to follow. So help us, and then the action: serve, build, house, feed, educate, and then amount plus noun. So help us, right? Whatever it is there, the action: 100 meals, 50 children, 10 single moms. And then what's the timing? This week, this month, this year, this season. And then by doing what? And so here are a few examples of that. Help us build 4 new homes for homeless veterans in need this winter by supporting our Shelter from the Storm campaign. So you can see the flow there: action, amount, who, and when is it happening. Here's another example: help us pack 750 lunches in 24 hours by volunteering with Meals on a Mission this Giving Tuesday. That's very clear, right? A lot of information right there. Help us feed and provide housing for 100 children this winter. And so you can see, right, that's much different than just help us save children. And then you can expand on it from there. You can add the monetary amount and the specific deadline, and again, connected with the specific action. Here's one example of that: help us raise $1,000 this Giving Tuesday to purchase warm blankets for 100 homeless teens this winter. And you can help by. And then what is that call to action? Is it clicking on this link? Is it attending this event? Is it engaging something online that's going to share a little bit more about that? So again, communication is key, but a lot of times, and of course we need to report on impact after people give gifts, but there is a way to make an ask and mix the impact right into that ask. And that's what we've just shown here a little bit. And then on the back end, like I just mentioned, you want to be sure to communicate the outcomes of your work, not just the programming that's happening. And so follow this diagram. There are people that you're trying to help and reach, that God has called you to help and reach. And then they're going to engage your work, your programming, what God has called you to do. And the result of that, everybody, is going to be something, right? We believe it's going to be their new life, needs being met, housing being provided, understanding the gospel in a clearer way. And so what you want to communicate is you want to communicate not just the work and the programming, that's happening, but what God is doing through it and how lives are being changed and transformed. That's what donors want to understand. If people give to you and they never hear back from you, and they never understand the impact of their gifts, they will not continue to be a financial partner over the long haul. So keep all that in mind. Heather, I'm gonna turn it back over to you as we continue on here.
Yeah, lots of good stuff. Don't quit. We are almost done.
Yep.
These last couple of points, we're not going to go into tons of detail, but the principles are so critical. Trust is trending upward. You know, as mobile devices and virtual events, peer-to-peer, all these things grow, so does the issue of trust. It was just last month, I heard another fundraising expert say that 60% right now of new donors are a result of a friend's recommendation. That says something about trust. Now, but keeping someone's trust is what's imperative. So trust isn't built just by one single event. Hey, my friend told me to do this. It's a result of a series of positive, consistent interactions, personalization, showing impact, like Jonathan was talking about. Each one of those things builds on the next to build a sense of trust in an organization. And trust really is about, how does that culture feel? What is the culture of your organization? All the different ways that they interact. So how do you do that? What is it that you're doing? And taking that step back, even as you donate to yourself $1,000 in multiple ways, like Jonathan did, because he just did that. He donated $1,000 to Venture 19 by mobile and online, every which way. He's poor now, but anyway, going back to this is, after you've done that, look at the process and how is it that you are relational and how are you building trust? And the hard reality is, really easy to lose trust. Little things break down trust quickly. Building trust takes time. So when we look at that idea of trust, one of the key surveys that we looked at, called the Giving Experience, done by One Cause, trust is in the middle. So you've got all these other main ideas they're trying to say, but it's a core motivator of what, and a major expectation by donors, is that they trust that the organization will do the right thing with the resources they're given. So because their friend told them to do it, they're going to trust that. And they're looking for things that are going to say, yeah, this is a good thing for me to trust. Now I'm leaning on my friend's experience, but I'm going to have my own set of experiences. I want to make a difference. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be scammed. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be involved in something that isn't above board. I want to make a difference. So everything we do is, we want that to be building that sense of trust. That's from their giving experience. How easy was that process? Does it show that it's secure? Does it show that you understand who they are? What do your receipts look like? Is that receipt coming back and saying, we appreciate you, you've entrusted us, we're partnering together? How do you build trust through your receipts? 100% of those emails get opened, don't they? Because people want to know you got what they gave and want to see what you say. Your thank yous, your next communication to them, all these things are going to be what contributes to building trust. And trust isn't rational, it's relational. It's not people thinking, hey, this one thing happened, that one. It's something that people feel. It's that sense of culture that, when people feel like they're connected, feel like there's a relationship, they let go of some of the small issues that happen if their trust is high. We're drawing down on that relational bank account. And when you make a withdrawal, something goes wrong, if there's good trust, good relationship, then you can draw down on it. But it's this sense of, is this a relationship? And one of the ways that we build relationship with people is we do find ways to make two-way communication. And this came out in a couple of things. Are there ways that you as an organization have learned to listen to and learn from your donors? Because if you can indicate that you're listening, if you're asking some questions of donors, then they're like, oh, they're connecting to me. It's a two-way relationship, not just one way. And so a new study indicated that donor loyalty can heavily depend upon whether or not a nonprofit organization talks with their donors, not just talks at their donors. That's the distinction. And so if you put yourself in their shoes and you're saying, are we engaging with, are we receiving information from, and how do we do that? What is our reply? Is your reply to an info.com? Is your reply to a person? Who is it? So getting to know why people give what they give. The only way you're going to get that is if you ask questions, or if people reply, they know it's going to a live human being, which is another really important point, is that donors really are interested in who's leading the organization and their leadership. So, think about, how do you get your leadership known? Do you represent them? Do people know when they get emails who the email's from, what their role is? Do they feel like they're connecting to different parts of your team and knowing who's doing what? And how do we depict our leaders there? How do we give them glimpses into the kind of leaders we have and the heart that you have? Because every leader I've ever met leading a ministry has a huge heart for what they're doing. But do your donors get to see your heart as a leader? Do they get to see your character? Do they get to see what you're passionate about? Do they see it's a real person and not just some machine of an organization? People want to know that. They also really want to know that our leaders and our organizations are trusting God. I love how Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ, and he lived that out. So we want to follow leaders that we know are doing the right things and ultimately are following Christ to the best of their ability. It's much easier to trust a leader that's sincerely seeking God and wanting to follow Christ. So how do you share that with your donors, that you are seeking God in the work you're doing? That's just a consideration. So if we can communicate that with donors, then we can say together we're trusting Christ to accomplish this mission that we're all passionate about. And ultimately, a big question in the back of everyone's mind is, how are we handling resources? Are we putting them to good use? And so this isn't based on just one event, but it's every encounter, every communication. How are you using the resources God's given to you? When you do that, you're ultimately wanting to say, what kinds of things are we doing right now? What are we using the resources, the money you're giving? What are we using them to do right now? What's the impact? And we can't underestimate the importance of communicating impact. And then even transparency. Sometimes you can say, hey, we did this and we learned this. So what things are working? What things aren't working? What lessons have you learned? Those are things that it helps connect them to feel like, okay, here's an organization, not just putting out a front and making everything look good, but they're really trying to help us move forward. They're wanting to make an impact, and here's what they're doing, what they're learning. And then we've already said about the process, that it's secure. And last thing here is, what's that welcoming environment? Once someone starts with you, do you bring them in and treat them like, hey, now you're part of us. We're going to tell you things about us. We're going to help you see that we are faithful stewards to the work we're doing. So ultimately, this is the last slide that was in that study we had, is that 70% are reporting that they're likely or somewhat likely to be regular annual donors if they experience these things. Feel like my donation makes a difference. You can see how practical these things are, that donating was easy, that if I'm asked to donate by somebody I know. So do I know these people? Have I started to build a relationship with whoever's sending your emails? Do I know who they are? Something about them? The campaign is inspirational to me. The organization tells me I'm making impact, and that I really enjoyed being connected to this organization. All of these things build trust that keeps your donors feeling connected and like they want to go the long haul as ministry partners with you.
Just gonna wrap up here. This will just be a couple minutes, and then make note that when we send out the PowerPoint, there are some additional slides that we weren't planning to teach through today that just talk about some other general trends, and so you can read through those yourselves when you get those. But I want to talk a little bit for just a couple minutes about how balance is good, but rhythm is better, and this is from a leadership standpoint. So I sat down with my good friend Joey Kaufman, and his wife and ministry partner Robin is on this call with us, and I talked to Joey about this concept of rhythm versus balance. And here are just a number of things that he said. And again, I just want to talk about this for 2 minutes, and then we'll wrap up. Joey said these things. He said, we oftentimes crave balance as leaders, but what we really need is rhythm. He said, life is not meant to be balanced. It flows in different seasons. And we need to understand that, and we need to embrace that from a leadership standpoint. And then he said this, which I just love. It's so simple. Planting season is not harvesting season, right? There are different seasons for that. And oftentimes when we feel like we're struggling and we want everything to be balanced and everything happening at once at just the right time and in just the right way, that's not really the way life and leadership works. And it's not even really the way it's supposed to work. So there are different seasons, right, for different activities. Sometimes life is lopsided. Lean into that and embrace that season and discover what God is trying to teach you in that season. There's nothing, I love this too. He said this, there's nothing wrong with winter. Winter is not supposed to look like summer. I love that, right? When we find ourselves in, from a leadership standpoint, in a season of winter, we often think, what's wrong with us? What's happening? It's supposed to be summertime. Everything's supposed to be great. Flowers are supposed to be blooming. No, it's winter. And that is a natural part of how life works. It's a natural part of how leadership works. It's a natural part of how rhythm works. And Joey highlighted Psalm 1 to me. He said, remember what it says there. Blessed is the man. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit when, everybody? All the time, every day? No, just in season. And so we're happy to have more conversations with you about this. Robin or Joey would love to talk to you about this if you've got some additional questions. But stop trying to figure out balance all the time, because the world is pretty imbalanced and our lives are pretty imbalanced. Think more in terms of rhythm and flow and seasons, and what is God saying to you even right now as you hear this difference. So just wanted to sort of end by sharing that with you. And again, we have another section which we did not plan to even teach on today, but that will come through email to you, just general trends that that you can take a look at and read through. And if you've got some additional questions, you can let us know there. So, but I will say, here's what we're going to do. I am going to pray for us because our time is done. But we always do this with online sessions. If you would like to stay on for another 5 or 7 or 10 minutes, we are happy to answer additional questions. Robin, I don't know what your schedule is, but if you can stay on for a few minutes with us, that'd be awesome, in case people want to hear you share a little bit more about rhythm versus balance. But let me pray for us, and then go and have a great day, but feel free to stay on with us as well and look for the follow-up material. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for these leaders. God, a ton of information today. I pray that we would not feel overwhelmed or confused in any way. But God, I just pray that you would continue the conversation with each and every one of us individually. And I just pray that you would pull one thing out, or a step you want us to take, or something that we need to focus on. And we don't need to focus on all of this at once, but just help us to hear your voice and tell us and make clear the path that you want us to go, and give us the courage to take those steps. We thank you for this time. I thank you for these wonderful leaders. Pray that you would bless their day and the rest of their week in a special way. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.